Hello, 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 and welcome. Happy Monday. We're so excited for you guys being with us, and we're excited to be able to share this moment with you. Thank you so much for being with us in the chat. We see you telling us where you're watching from. Please let us know if you're with us live. We want to hear from you. Even if you watch this recording later, if you could put in the chat, let us know where you're watching from. We would love to be able to see how we're connected in this together. I'm here with my good friend, Dr. Scott Edgar, and we're excited about these lunchtime chats. It's sponsored by Music for All, and we're ready for a good conversation. Dr. Edgar, how you feeling, my friend?
Cameron, home run. I'm ready to go. So much of this last little bit has been about not connecting, and Summer Symposium is all about connection. So when James and Jeremy came to us and said, how can we connect people? Well, how do we always connect? We connect over a meal. We connect, we talk, we chat. So get the chips out. Let's get ready, and let's just talk to some middle school band directors.
Absolutely. Let's have a good time. So let's bring our friends on. We want them to come on here and to get a chance to say hello, introduce themselves, and let everyone know what they're doing, what's taking place in their world, and that we're excited for them to be here. Hey, we just go around in a circle here, the way I see it here on my screen. Started with my friend Keith. Let us know who you are, what's going on in your world.
Hey everyone, Keith Ozsvath. I teach at Rotolo Middle School in Batavia, Illinois, and I've been affiliated with Music for All for a long time, going all the way back as a high school camper, and now I'm with the middle school concert band camp for the past 5 years.
Nice. So you attended and now you're a part of it as a faculty member and contributing. Man, we thank you so much for all that you do.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My friend Savannah.
Hi everybody, my name is Savannah Cole. I am the band director at Bennett's Mill Middle School in Fayetteville, Georgia. And last year was actually my first year there at that school. Quite a time to step into a new position, but it was a unique experience. I went to Summer Symposium as a camper for 5 years. I don't know if you even knew that. Five
Wow.
years? Yeah, went to the director's track for a few summers, and I guess it must have been 2 years ago now. Got to come back and present a session. So pretty full circle, and I'm excited to be back with you guys today.
I love it. I love it. And this is a connecting point. Although we can't be in person, this is definitely a connecting point, and I'm excited about it. My friend Tori, come on in here and say hello.
Hello, my name's Tori. I'm a band director in Grove, Oklahoma, teach middle school. I have been a swag since 2013 with Summer Symposium, and I'm just so happy to be here today, sharing lunch and some tea with you all.
Yes, absolutely. Fancy with the tea. I love it. Now, Tori, hold on one second. Let everybody know what's a swag, just in case we connected some dots here.
Well, I can't tell you what it actually means, but the
Hmm.
swags, the swags are, we help out at Summer Symposium. We're like the camp counselors.
Absolutely. And they make the magic happen. I will say that. I got a chance to attend Summer Symposium and the swags, they make the magic happen. So thank you guys so much for all that you do. All right, my friend Vordie, come on in here, man. Tell us what's going on.
Hi, I'm Vordie Mathis, and I work in at Western Oaks Middle School near Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Mm.
I've been a swag since 2016. Tori actually introduced me to what the swag team was, and then because we went to school together, and then I've been a swag ever since. So
Nice. There's a swag connection going on here. I love it. I love it. My friend Jen, come on in here and say hello.
Hey guys, I'm Jen Walsh and I live in Birmingham, Alabama. I teach a little bit north of there in Kimberly at North Jefferson Middle School. And I have no idea what swag means. I've taken lots of guesses. Nobody will tell me. But my introduction to Music for All essentially was getting a scholarship to go, from Yamaha to attend the Summer Symposium. And it was absolutely a life-changing experience. And I am happy to be here today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that you said it's a life-changing experience because that's what it's all about in music education, and particularly here at Music for All. It's all about having those meaningful, life-changing experiences. My friend Scott, let us know where you're from, my brother.
Cameron, such an honor. So I teach up here just around the corner from Keith. Actually, we're secretly chatting behind everyone's back, but right around the corner, Lake Forest College, just a little bit north of Chicago. I have the honor of being the host of Teaching Social and Emotional Learning and Music Education for Music for All. And that's sort of my area of the world right now is how can we just, exactly what you just said, Cameron, how can we deepen our music classrooms? So yeah, it's about notes and rhythms, but it's about so much more. And that's what we're here to chat about. How can we take our space and really understand what this looks like in our students' lives so that after they leave our classrooms, after we pass that baton and they go on to high school, we know that they've taken something far more than just that piece of music. They've taken with them that experience that being in band we know is invaluable.
Absolutely, absolutely. To all of the middle school directors who are with us live, we want to say welcome and thank you so much for being with us. We're also live on Facebook. So, hey, let us know in the chat where you're watching from, where you're listening from. We'd be so glad to have you a part of the table, a part of the discussion, and a part of the conversation here this afternoon, this morning, depending on where you're watching in the world, evening, I don't know. We're all around the world. So we're just glad that you're here. Hey, I want to start here, Dr. Edgar, if we could. I just want to find out what went well last year. We had so many things that got past us. We want to know what went well. Just before we do, we have friends here from the Marines. Yay! Hello, my friend. Come on in here. Tell us what's going on and tell us where you're from.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Chief Warrant Officer 2, Eric Kyne. I know it's a big mouthful, so you can call me Eric. Very glad to be here. And it's actually one of my dreams when I grow up to be a band director as well. So I really appreciate you all having me in and getting a chance to speak to you all.
Eric, the pleasure is ours, man. We're so glad that you're here with us, my friend, and excited to be able to hear your voice, your perspective of how things have gone. Listen, I want to start with my friend Jen. Jen, I want to know what went well last year. I mean, the last 15, 16 months have been something significant in all of our lives. What went well in your world?
I would like to say initially that I learned just obviously not to take things for granted. But I learned not to I really learned about myself in my teaching that I was making a lot of assumptions about my students, and they really shined. Like they just blew me out of the water how resilient and how strong they were. They absolutely did everything we asked them to as far as guidelines. It was a whole new experience motivating them. In turn, they motivated me. Like, this sounds cliche, I know, but we were in a situation in our school where we did not have as many students remote as a lot of students and communities around us. And I had a smaller number. I mean, I think we all experienced probably some type of adjustment in our numbers going into last school year. And that played to my advantage because we got to have more personal connection and even we're able to social distance, and our classroom in the band room was a space that they could sit without their mask. And maybe that's the one thing they look forward to in their day. But I really feel like I was very blessed in how we got to experience this past year. And ultimately for me and my teaching, like I said, I really saw my kids in a whole new light, and they were more open with me and I with them. And I really learned a lot from them as far as adults, we were freaking out, but like my beginning band students had never been in beginning band before, and they had a great time. And so I learned that, every step forward, every day forward was something new for us.
That's so good. Come on, Keith, my friend, what went well?
Quite a few things. Number one, the biggest thing I think was being in person with my students. Initially, we weren't, but then we gradually transitioned. And even though, it was probably only about 70% of my kids, it was great to have those students in person because early on we were doing individual playing skills, and that was going well. It was tough, but the more kids we started getting in class, then we could gradually transition to playing full band pieces. And that made it easier on myself, but it also made the band experience happen again, where we were sorely missing that. So that was great to have. And we got to perform a concert in May outdoors.
Whoa!
Fantastic. It was the highlight of the year.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And it make you not take those moments for granted moving forward. And that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would also kind of piggyback what Jen said. Really getting to know my students, this time allowed, maybe gave myself more permission for some more downtime in rehearsal where we really were checking in on the students and asking them individually, hey, how's it going? Hey, what'd you do last night? How was your weekend? And I did that more often this year than I ever have as a teacher. And I think that really made a difference for a lot of kids.
I love it. I love it. And in your world, I want to go to my friend Savannah, then my friend Eric. Just want to know same thing. What went well?
Yeah, I agree that building relationships was a whole different ballgame this year. Reduced class sizes, and we went to a block schedule to kind of cut down on contact tracing. That had its own pros and cons, but with the guidelines of how often we could play, and then we had to take a break and stuff, it gave some of that downtime that you were talking about. And I got to know my students extremely well. Even the students that I've only really met them through a screen, we had about half of our students that were fully virtual this year. So that was a unique challenge. But it also allowed me to kind of experiment with some activities, games, curriculum stuff that doesn't involve playing instruments that I'll end up keeping because they just went really well. Another thing that I think went really well this year, kind of a silver lining that I tried to draw my attention to and my students' attention back to throughout the year, was the community support for our programs. Just everybody kind of rallied around what we do and showed how important it is to them. And for me personally, the administrative support, especially being new to this role this year, we had to rely on our administrators to help us or to even create some extra opportunities as far as recruiting. Spring of 2020, recruiting into this year or last year didn't really happen. So we kind of had to do some of that after the school year started. We had to adjust schedules later than we normally do. And just any little thing that an administrator did for me or a school counselor did for me, it just shows how much they support our programs. And I'm going to remember that forever.
Savannah, that support is huge. Oh my goodness, it's huge. And I love that you said there's some games that we did last year that were connective that we have to carry with us beyond this point. I love that. I love that. My friend Eric?
Yeah, actually, a little bit on that line. Obviously, we're Marines. We adapt, we overcome. That's something that everybody has had to do this whole time during the pandemic. But even though Marines, we still like to have a good time and have fun. So some of those things that Savannah was saying, hey, let's find some different ways, some different approaches. We did a lot of more physical activity, even if it was games like, we played capture the flag with water balloons just the other day. So we find ways to, have a great time. And one of our, we had to just do the whole crawl, walk, run thing. Hey, we went from not playing at all to, okay, hey, now we're getting these individuals playing together to finally we had one of our first big performances in Norfolk, Virginia this past summer for the Virginia International Tattoo. So it's been a treat. And one personal success story during that time, we've had Marines that have checked in and they've never done a performance. They've been here for a year, whereas somebody who just showed up last week and now they're on the road with us. But one of those that was kind of sitting on his hands for a very long time ended up being Marine of the Year for, I know it's just a different title, but he won a really big award during that time. So we really got to focus on different areas besides just the music. And that's what we love to do. But hey, what else can we do to move forward and not be stagnant?
Man, that's so good. Thank you so much for sharing that walk. What was it? Crawl, walk, run. Whoa, that's like a hashtag. It's got to be somewhere. My friend Vordie, we're going to you, then my friend Tori, then to my friend Dr. Edgar. Go ahead, Vordie. Tell us what went well last year.
Well, speaking on that, the thing that went well for me was connecting with the kids. At first, it was very, very hard because this is my first year at the school. I decided to move during a pandemic, which was great. And so a majority of my students don't actually speak English. So it was another barrier that I had to kind of get over, but I found lots of different ways to communicate with parents, lots of different things about my students that I would have never known just by having conversations with them on those Zoom sessions where nobody actually showed up, where it was just me and maybe one of the other kids. And we would just have like meaningful conversations outside of, okay, a quarter note gets one beat, blah, blah. Yeah, so it was a very like connective year and things like that. So
I love that. Connective. I love that. My friend Tori.
Yeah, what went well this year? We played music together. We actually were in person the entire year since August. We started in person. We would go online for days here and there. We're in a smaller community, so smaller numbers. But we were rehearsing in the auditorium, and that was tough. But there would be like, I learned how to focus on the small victories. That's what went well for me and the kids, and just trying to like bring the kids back, like, hey, we have the entire percussion section today. That's awesome. Let's hear this thing that we've been working on. We haven't been able to hear it yet. Or just trying to focus on the small victories for myself and the students as well.
Absolutely. My friend, Dr. Edgar.
How can we beat this? This is already so inspiring to hear what went well. Because, as I talk to teachers from across the country, it's like, yeah, you get it that last year was rough. We understand that last year, it's important for us to remember that there is a glass half full there too. I think my biggest question and what was inspiring when I heard all of this is, to me, I think each and every one of you told a story of something that is admirable that I would want for my son. I want my son to be in all of your classrooms, but he's got a few years to go. So my question is, what sticks from last year? What are the things that we're going to bring with us? Because, I think as a society and as music teachers, we have short-term memory loss. And we go back to how we've always done it so quickly. And this fall, I think, when people say, Scott, what's your biggest worry? That we're going to go back to how we always have done it. That we won't have learned some lessons. That we won't have learned some space. And, Eric, water balloons. You played. We play instruments. We need to remember that this thing is fun. We've forgotten that. So before I kind of pitch to our next question to roll us into this, I want to suggest just a little bit, because I'm seeing things in the chat that I want to tie into this too. This idea of R&R. We all need R&R right now, right? Rest and relaxation. Jen, you said you're starting marching band next week. Oh, please take as much rest and relaxation as you can before then. But there's another R&R that we talk about in our world, recruitment and retention. And the solution to all of that, I firmly believe, is another R word, and it's relationships. It's relationships. When we have the relationship in place, everything that we just talked about comes with us. So as we're starting to be positive about this, we're starting to be positive about realizing we've come through some tough times. My question for you, friends, is when we get back to the pressure of the concerts, because I don't know about you, but I get grumpy the week before concerts when those notes and rhythms aren't clean. We know where we are. But how are we going to fold the deck? We've learned. Our students' voices matter. We centralize the student. We have those conversations. We value that relationship. Keith, you spoke so eloquently about caring about the kid. The concert makes us forget about that sometimes. So next fall, we're back to a world that looks like some form of reality that we're used to in music education. What sticks from the fall? Eric, what do you got, my friend?
Sure. Let me lower my hand here, my yellow emoji hand. So that's one of my biggest concerns as well, too. Listening to NPR in my car ride this morning, and how everyone around the world is saying, hey, we need to get back into the classroom. Like, let's get kids in the seats, which is great and all. But hey, why can't we take some of the things we learned? Like, say, for instance, if I'm stuck in a hospital for something and I can't be participating with the rest of the kids, hey, we've got these Zoom meetings that we've been doing this whole time. Now we're going to kind of just forget about all that. And, oh, now they're just going to fall behind. But you were talking also about retention. And I really think it's very important for the individual, not just the students, my Marines as well, but to have like that individual ownership. Like, hey, I'm in the band. This is why I'm in the band. This is why I love band. This is why I love music. And, certain things we do is we get together, we talk, we have chats. It's not all just about the music making. We program some time in our day just to have these conversations, guided discussions, whether it's about a certain artist, a musician, kind of music. And I was thinking at the middle school level, maybe if there's a teacher, and again, I'm preaching to the choir here, but hey, this individual student, you're on deck for next week to tell us, hey, what's your favorite song, or what's your favorite artist, or share something with the class. So it's not, okay, let's sit in here. All right, let's play our scales. All right, we're good. All right, let's look at the music. Like, let's have individuals talk with each other and discuss.
Eric, I love that, up one side and down the other. And, let's just own it. What's been the one phrase that we've said more than anything the last 18 months? You're on mute. right? And how often do we just need to unmute our students? And I think, oftentimes we think that, oh, we're going to give our students a voice. And then a dear friend of mine literally slapped me upside the head and said, Scott, no, we just mute our students. We are in a position that we mute our students. How can we unmute them through the process and the beauty of the band classroom? Keith, what do you got, my friend?
I think you read my mind, because one of the things, there's probably three things I'm taking with me for this next school year, but I probably asked my kids more what they thought last year than I ever have before. And I've done reflections and gathered their input, but it almost feels fake now to what I did this past year, because I was really asking them and I really wanted to know their answer, because did you like the solo I just gave you guys, or do you want to do something else? Like asking for ideas for music. And I don't know, I was more intentional with it. It was being authentic. Absolutely. And that I'm taking with me, because that's something I learned that was huge. And I can't wait for the school year to start, because there's so many things I want to do that we didn't get to do last year. But something that I started doing is in February, we've always kind of done fun things in February, just because in Chicago, February is awful. And, we're all tired of the cold weather, and the kids are tired of it getting dark at 4:30, and they're tired of the cold too. So we've always kind of done as a school fun things. But I don't know. I just thought on Fridays, we're doing fun Fridays with the kids. And we played games on Fridays. I didn't care if we didn't play. It didn't matter. Or if we only played for 10 minutes. Whatever. So we did fun Fridays, and then after that ended, the kids are like, are we still going to do fun Fridays in March? Which was cool, because they obviously enjoyed it. So I started doing dad joke Fridays, and the eye rolling was exceptional. Think about 8th graders. The shaking of the heads, but I had kids coming on Fridays with their own jokes that they wanted to tell. So it ended up being a huge hit. And again, last year was an opportunity for that. I probably never would have done it normally, but it's that opportunity of getting to know the kids, the interacting, that was totally elevated last year, that I would like to keep doing.
Keith, I love that. And I especially love the authentic piece, because we all know that middle schoolers smell fake. The second that, you put it out there, they know, as they should. And I think that authenticity and understanding that we're bringing this forward because we care about the kid. We care about this idea. I was reading something from a Disney Imagineer the other day that said that fun is important, but fun is cheap. That when we can take fun and deepen it and make it meaningful and make it memorable, that's when we hit that home run. And I think that's exactly what you were talking about, is that yes, fun's the entry point, but so much that served as the entry point to do so many of those deep things, so many of those conversations. Fun is cheap. Joy, connection, belonging. That's what we're about. That's what we're about. Jen, can you jump in and tell us what you're going to bring with us for next year?
Yeah, I agree with Keith. My schedule this year was just basically given to me. And I typically have had a wonderful schedule, homogeneous beginning classes, ability level groups for my 7th and 8th graders. And my principals sat me down and were like, hey, this is what we're doing. Because of teaming, we were able to keep a lot of our students just with the same students and things throughout the day. So that meant all of my 6th and 7th and 8th grade classes were split. I had no choice in instrumentation. I literally got dumped. And then I also was unable to go to the high school, which is a major part of my job, being able to connect with the high school students. And I missed out on that. So that's actually something I'm not taking with me to the fall. I have gotten that changed, being able to go back to the high school and really care for them. But with my middle school students, what ended up happening was in the spring, I got the permission to have joint rehearsals on Fridays, like you're talking about, Fun Fridays, Keith. And we rehearsed for, maybe not the crunch of like the bell ringing. We could maybe do like a 65-minute rehearsal, which kind of started a little less frantically or whatnot, and got some fundamentals in, and a full band rehearsal. And so then we would kind of pack things up, and we might do some Kahoot and it was beautiful in Birmingham. And we went out and went for a walk kind of around the track. And so that's something that I value. Like, I know we've already talked about the rehearsal schedule and sort of like we're kind of minute by minute as middle school teachers. We know when that bell rings, they're out of there and time is up. And I think that understanding that time and that pacing can change enough that we actually start, even on a weekly basis with those check-ins, or with even if it's just something fun after a run through on a Friday. That literally the kids want that, and we do too. We know we've always had high expectations, and it's not that expectations lowered this year, they just shifted. And understanding that my expectation of you is to enjoy what you're doing and for you to connect and not just be a great musician. So that's definitely something that I'm carrying into the fall. And when I get to reconnect with my high school students as well, is just checking in on them. And that's one of my favorite things about being a band director, is seeing them grow up and seeing them flourish. And I really want to instill that this coming fall and make that my intention.
And it's all about the connection. It always has been. And I think when the pressure of all the other things, that bell and everything were taken off, we realized that what was left was the relationship. So good, Jen. And you used the word frantic. That word frantic, oftentimes that takes so much from us. And I don't think we realize that power. My wife often teases me. She's like, Scott, why do you eat so fast? Well, I eat so fast because I'm used to eating lunch, going to the bathroom, and being back in 10 minutes. That's why I eat so fast. That's the reality of it. It changes how we interact with everybody. Wonderful. Vordie, what do you have for us?
So for me, it's also still just building those relations, and also having the kids be a part of their program and talking to them about what they want to do, how they're feeling at the time. Sometimes I avoided asking, like, how are we liking this piece, or how is everybody doing? Because I knew that what the answer was going to be. And eighth graders are brutally honest. Almost to a fault sometimes. And sometimes you just got to shelter your feelings and just like suck it up and let them tell you, hey, this piece sucks and we don't really want to play this. And then you got to scrap it and do something else. And I think going forward next year, I want to make sure that they have a say in what they're doing, and not get roped into the usual, okay, we have pep band this week, we have Veterans Day concert coming up, have a Christmas concert coming up, oh, then we're doing contests, and then we're doing solo and ensemble, then the year's over. I kind of want to do more of what they want to do while also keeping those standards of what we need to get done.
The most powerful thing you said, their program. Oh, it's just running around in my head. And I want a t-shirt. I want a t-shirt. One of my dear friends at Round Lake High School made t-shirts for all of his kids. And I so appreciate what Mike West did. It says, everybody counts. And double meaning there, right? It's come on, count. But it just really does centralize exactly what we're saying. And that vulnerability. We know the second that we pass out a piece of music, and they look at it and they're like, I'm already bored because I can play it down, or I have no interest. And then we have 6 weeks of teeth pulling. Absolutely. Wonderful, wonderful perspective there, Vordie, to realize that we can be vulnerable and we can be wrong and we can misinterpret and we can misunderstand and we can do better. Home run, my friend. Savannah, what do you have?
I have a few things that I'm going to keep going into next year. We've all talked about, I think everybody at this point has talked about something that they did this year that was a little bit experimental. And we all had to do that, right? And we're all going to take our individual things, but I'm also going to take with me the permission to be a little bit experimental, right? And I'm still a young teacher. This will be my 5th year teaching, but I had kind of settled into, okay, this is the set of things that worked for me. And the pandemic was that kind of slap in the face reminder, like, no, we still have to keep trying new things because there might be a better way to do something than we've already done it. And then with being experimental and kind of, we all were faced with our own set of circumstances. All of ours in this call were different. Everybody listening, all of our circumstances were different. And we had to problem solve and do the best we could with those circumstances. That kind of gave me a renewed empathy for our middle school students, right? And I mean, I knew that it's a big life transition and I'm handing them this expensive instrument that's probably the most expensive thing that they own besides maybe their phone or, whatever it is. But, waking up at some mornings and being like, well, we'll see what happens today, right? Just kind of going back to that sort of space of not being so sure all the time, it helped me to understand my students that much more. So I'm going to try to remember that going forward as well.
Empathy and grace are the two biggest things we can show for our students and ourselves. Savannah, I loved when you're talking about experimenting. And again, going back to, I'm worried that when everything else starts to come back on top of us, that we're going to forget the two best words. And, we're not hammering home this idea called social and emotional learning during our time here. But Savannah, the two biggest verbs that I love when we're talking about SEL is tinker. How can we just tinker and play and experiment? And our students can tinker and figure it out on their own. And then envision. How can we tinker to a point that we can envision a path forward and our students are part of that? I sincerely, at my heart, hope that comes with all of us. Cameron, what's coming with you?
Man, one of the things is the appreciation of the journey, the appreciation of the full process, and not just so much focused on the destination and that finish line, if I could say that, but understanding that we are in this together, we're moving forward, one step at a time, pursuing excellence. And my students know Mr. Jenkins, he's got this definition of excellence that he's going to say all the time. And it's simply to be better today than I was yesterday. And it's also looking into the future to be better tomorrow than we are right now. And what everyone has said is all of these improvements, this tinkering, this imagination of how can we make this better? Okay, that was cool, but how can we up this by 2% or 5%, and see what that experience is like over time? Oh my goodness, it's going to be golden. And I'm excited. Listen, family, friends, those of you that's with us live in Facebook world, it's so exciting to hear from you. Those that's live with us here on the Zoom chat, it's so cool to see you with us. We want to hear from you. We want to know, what are you taking with you? What are you taking with you moving forward, going into this new year? What are you taking with you that you don't want to leave behind in the last 15 months? In addition to that, I want to know from my friends that's on here this afternoon, morning, evening, I want to know from you, what are the things that your students are going to need this fall to be successful? And I know that looks different according to where we are in the world and according to the students that we teach. But for the most part, from your angle, what are you seeing that your students are going to need in order to be successful? I would love to start with my friend Tori, then go to my friend Savannah, and just hear from you. What are those things that you need, your students will need to be successful this upcoming fall? Tori?
Yeah, with this past year, a lot of things that I want to work on in my classroom is just fundamentals, long tones, scales, rhythm sheets, just making sure that we have all of that under control, because there were some days last year that were a little chaotic, just trying to see who was there that day and trying to figure out like where everybody was. But I think for me and my students both, just going into this year with measured expectations, having like an understanding of, yeah, this year happened. We might not have gotten to everything that we wanted to. That's okay. Let's pick up right where we left off. Whether you touched your instrument over the 3 months of summer or not, we'll pick it up. We'll pick up the pieces as we go. And it's crazy for me to think that my 8th graders this year, who are supposed to be like the leaders in the class and the best musicians in the class, their 6th grade year was cut short. So they're like, it's just everybody's on different levels than what we were at in 2019 even. So just going into this year with measured expectations, having something like performances to look forward to and to prepare for will also definitely help a lot.
Absolutely. And they feel your vibe of how you handle those expectations, and they walk with you through that process, which is so cool. I love that. Savannah?
Yeah, Tori was right on the money with what I was going to say too, is that our students need for us to continue to know that this is not a quote unquote normal year, that everything we did last year is setting us up for this year. So everything good about this year is because of seeds that we planted, right? Even the kids that are in seats, all of those little things are positive things. So I'll definitely be focused on that. But filling in the fundamentals, the knowledge gaps that my students have. I'll have students that were fully virtual last year coming into the building for the first time in a year and a half. That also leads me to the next thing that I think they need, which is that social connection with each other. And Keith mentioned how when we felt stuck a little bit whenever we were just focusing on individual playing skills. I had the same experience. And then when we all got to come together, it kind of took it a little bit back to that band experience that they're all after. And my virtual students didn't get that. My brick and mortar students, in-person students did get an element of that. But my virtual students were just sitting in their room playing all year. So they're going to really need that social connection, and they're going to need for me to help them with that, because it's been a year and a half since they've tried to relate to someone else in that way. And then, I just need to be able to adapt to the scenario. So programming is going to be much different than it usually would have been, right? Our instrumentation is a little out of whack because we haven't had that planning. They might not be playing as difficult music as they would have been before the pandemic. And then I'm just going to try to make this year chock full of the things that they've missed out on, right? So live performances is a huge one. If we're counting up live performances that our students have done, it gets sad real quick. So try to do a lot of live performances. And then I'm going to try to work in some sort of trip, whether it's just a day, like not an overnight thing, but we really sometimes can underestimate how much things like that, experiences like that, can define a band experience for a kid. I remember those trips from middle school. So I'm just going to be trying to create those experiences that they missed out on.
Absolutely. And those experiences they carry with them literally for a lifetime. And it's huge. My friend Eric, I want to get you in here on the same thing. What are you guys going to need moving forward in the fall? And then my friend Jen, we'll go to you next.
Sure. So not so much our program in particular, but I can remember what I was like when I was 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and I was an absolute knucklehead. If you can picture me, I had the high top fade and not really growing things out anymore. But I would just say overall, just a lot of patience for these guys. I had band directors that had, even though I was missing rehearsals or here or there, they still put a lot of faith into me to make me the player I am. I play saxophone. So I just had a lot of patience, a lot of support. And, what we were mentioning about performance opportunities, there's still the worries of COVID and things like that. Not everything is running up 100%. Some things that we did personally is find performances to make happen, whether it was playing on the base housing at the grocery store, wherever it is. So I'm thinking in contrast, hey, these students, you know what, maybe we don't have a performance right now, but let's put something on the cafeteria so we can play for our fellow students, whether it's a small group, large group, you name it, or even recitals within the band. So that way they can be like, hey, this is something that we made happen and it's really cool. So.
Absolutely. My friend Jen, I love that concept you're talking about, Eric, of, just making sure you do something, having that opportunity to do something together. It's life-changing. Jen?
So just to chime in on what I feel like our students need going into the fall, I'm not sure if anybody here or listening is familiar with PBIS, the Positive Behavior Intervention. There is a sort of a guideline there that you basically assume that the students really don't know. They really don't know the appropriate behaviors. They don't know appropriate responses. And so rather than taking it out on them for not knowing, you just tell them what you need and you guide them with positive directions. Like instead of just being like, stop running, you're literally like, hey, we need you to walk. We need to be safe in the hallway. And so I think that's huge. Like when I think about the kids that are about to be in the 6th grade, they were in the 4th grade when everything hit, right? And their world and they saw adults, all of us respond probably not the best way. And it was huge. And I think that it's important that we know the kids in our room are there. They chose to be in our class, which is really special about what we get to do. But I think that we also take that care with us and we say, hey guys, this is how we need to do this. And even using that terminology also like to connect to the point previously about it being their program, not so much about, hey, I want you to do this, but really being careful of our language, that it's unifying. and that it's encouraging, and that it's just literally a positive spin on what you might have said. Like I might assume a kid knows how to put his music in his binder, but no, actually his little sheet protector was just upside down. And I just want to give a quick example as a personal level. My own daughter just finished the 7th grade, and in her 6th grade year, her Christmas concert was canceled because of bad weather and an ice storm in Birmingham. Yeah, we don't have salt for our roads. So then, of course, the pandemic hit. And so she actually did not get to perform her 6th grade year. And then during 7th grade, of course, with the pandemic, all of her larger concerts were canceled. And so her first concert was actually at Allstate with Alabama, where we were able to socially distant and have some great guidelines. And one of the things that I took as a band mom, like if I could just speak on behalf of the band parents everywhere, it was a crappy year. Our kids really suffered. They really had a hard time. And my kid is a straight A kid. She's extremely positive and talented and bubbly, a lot like me. And she is, I saw her go through some really tough times, some very dark times. And not to, take those things for granted, like, okay, meet them where they are, have those conversations, and honestly, the number one thing that I know I want to take into the fall, again, along the same lines, is that our kids want to be heard. Like my daughter over half the time is like, Mom, I just want you to listen. And I think we spend a lot of time, like we have a lot of knowledge and we have a lot of expertise, but ultimately, I know we've touched on this in a different way, but just to consider that maybe we assume they don't really know everything as far as behavior or as far as our expectations, when you make those clear and ask of them, but also the unifying language. And then above all, just that they get to be heard. Those are things that are probably not, I think those are long-term changes that I've got in place for my teaching and my parenting as well.
Wow. That is just, this has been such a rich conversation and it's so good. Shout out to your daughter. My goodness, part of music education, and let her know that she got a shout out at the lunchtime chat. Be sure to tell her that. My friend Vordie, we're going to go to you, then back to my friend, Dr. Edgar. Go ahead, Vordie. Let us know, my friend.
So I think just piggybacking off everybody else, just COVID took away so much from so many of the kids. It was just like, guys, we can't do this. Guys, we can't do this. This is also getting canceled. And it just took away so much from the kids. It's this year, I kind of just want to perform and just do little stuff as much as possible, because I realized during my school year last year, we got to have an actual in-person concert in May, and it completely changed the kids' perspective of band, because I do like these retention checks, because I'm like, who's gonna quit next year? Who's gonna stay with us? Because I'm always worried about that. And before the concert, there were a lot that were just like, I really don't see the purpose in this right now, and things like that. But then they got their first performance, especially the 7th graders, because their last performance they had was as 6th graders for Christmas. So they didn't perform until last May. And then after I did a concert review, all of them wanted to stay because they were like, it was so much fun. And we played The Tempest. They thought this was the coolest piece in the world. We all know that it's incredibly easy, but they thought it was the coolest thing in the world because they hadn't experienced that before. They hadn't experienced full band. I call it big band, and they think it's cool, but they hadn't experienced a full band performance. And it completely changed their perspective, because it showed them, okay, this is why we're here. We're making music and connections with different people, and only musicians understand what we're doing right now. So they really got a different perspective of what band is actually all about.
Vordie, everybody, such a powerful thing to move forward. There's one thing, though, that I want to suggest, because I know I get trapped in this all the time. I think this is what my students need. And then I design it in my head, and I'm in left field and they're in right field. And, this fall, I think the number one thing that I'm going to take with me is just 3 simple words. Ask the students. When we need to know anything, I think oftentimes we think we need to have all the answers. And for me, it is all about just asking them. Jen, you said 2 things that I just kind of want to piggyback off a little bit. Students oftentimes come and they ask questions, and we give them these rules. Telling them why is such a powerful powerful thing that we need to do. And I think there was a time that I think as a teacher would be like, you are questioning my authority. You are questioning me. Why are you even thinking this? I am the, and no, if I don't have a good reason, I shouldn't be doing it, right? Question me. If you don't know why we're doing something, ask. And if I don't have a good reason, well, maybe we'll come up with a better plan together. 100%. Well, guess what, friends? We're almost coming to the end of our time together today. And so I have one more question for the panel. And yeah, we're going to Brady Bunch around the room so that everyone has an opportunity to chime in on this one. I do see Kathy has a question in the chat, but if anyone else who's attending wants to throw a question in the chat, we'll get to that after this. The question is, we know that music educators and students are experiencing just a high level of burnout, high level of lack of motivation. So in our last little bit, what words of encouragement do you have for our teachers, for our field, for our students to carry with them in the fall, to put a little bit of gas in that tank, to understand that I firmly believe we teach the best subject in the world. Now, let me qualify. I want the science teacher to say the same thing, but they would just be wrong. We teach the best subject in the world. So let's start with Keith, and we'll just go around the room. Keith, what words of wisdom do you have for us?
You know, I feel like this past year was a roller coaster, right? There were times I was feeling great. My students were feeling great. I was feeling terrible. My students were feeling terrible. But I always kind of kept that in the back of my mind that we're going to get through this. Like we're going to, I don't know how long it's going to last, but we're going to get through this. And taking some time for yourself, like going outside and just walking for 10, 15 minutes just to clear my head and see like the sunshine or the light of day. Also using the Calm app. I don't know if everyone's ever used that. I put in earbuds and put on 10 minutes of calm. You can even go on YouTube and just listen to some calming nature sounds. And that's just a great strategy to help clear your head. And you can even do that with your students at the beginning of class. First 5 minutes, put on a waterfall scene. 5 minutes is long, like 1 minute, 2 minutes. Have everybody close their eyes. Hard to do with middle school kids, but some kids will do it. And if you do it continually, everyone will catch on. But just some nice mindfulness things that kind of help you get through the hard times.
Absolutely, my friend. Absolutely. That Calm app, man. Oh my goodness. It's been huge in my life. So I greatly appreciate that tip for everybody that's in the profession. Want to continue the same thing. Vordie, what's that word of encouragement, that word of advice that you would give fellow music educators?
I think it's just like Keith just said, taking care of yourself pretty much and doing things that you like to do. One of my friends and I were talking the other day, and he said to invest as much in yourself as you invest in your job, and you'll see how much better your life is. And I thought that was like, it kind of was mind blowing for everybody on the phone. We were like, oh, that actually makes sense. But yeah, just like taking care of yourself. I know Tori and I, we're best friends if y'all haven't caught on, but we both bought Switches during the pandemic, which was incredibly difficult to find. And we'll visit each other's Animal Crossing islands, or we'll play Fortnite and little things like that. And you have to just find that time of where you have your you time, and that you can help your own, like, go to your own mental space and just be happy. So yeah.
Absolutely. You got to find that happy space. And definitely, if you could do that with others, that's just amazing. Other music educators. Savannah, what would you say, my friend? What's your word of encouragement to other fellow music educators?
I would say that what we already do for a living is such a huge job, and we wear so many hats, and the content knowledge, it just is huge, really, compared to any other teacher in the building. I would contend, we're not just teaching one grade level of one subject. We are teaching 11 instruments, 3 grade levels, right? All at the same time. And we all know that. But I think that there's a lot of pressure to have all the answers, kind of like Scott was saying. And this year we didn't have all the answers. So I know that I went through ups and downs as far as, is this the right call? I'm not prepared for this situation, right? And then I realized that none of us were prepared for this situation at all. And the fact that we were just there for our kids, and that our programs which really could have dissolved. It did happen in a few cases. Everything all the work that you put in last year is going to show up this year and is already showing up this year. And the way that band was able to work in these students' lives during such a traumatic experience like this pandemic is already so worth it. So my word of encouragement is that you're not behind. You're an inspiration for showing up every day, and those kids needed you more than you will ever know. And just by showing up and solving the problem and being there, you helped them to get through the pandemic as well, whether or not you played as many notes and rhythms as you would have liked.
That's so good. Showing up, my friend, that's that first victory. And I love that. I love that. That is huge. My friend Tori, then my friend Jen, and my friend Eric. So, Tori, same thing. What's your word of encouragement?
Kind of the same thing that everybody's been saying. Like, if we have learned anything from COVID, every working adult, every human out there, I think we should learn to take time, do puzzles, go for walks with your dog, read a book, like take the time for yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup. And we as music educators, that's what we want to do all the time. But I encourage you to leave the band hall at a decent time, turn out the lights, go home. And if you have a Switch, like Vordie was saying, might I suggest you get it and play some Fortnite and Animal Crossing? Not only is it fun, but like you can connect with your kids about it too, and talk to your kids about the games and stuff. So that's my encouragement. Take some time for yourself this year.
I love it. It's so needed. It's so necessary. My friend Jen, what would you add to the conversation?
I would agree, of course, with everyone. And some of these things start to sound repetitive. And it's easy to listen to people say like, oh, take care of yourself, get out there and move and make sure you're eating well and getting rest. But in the moment, it's really hard. And so where I started this year in a personal journey that I've been on is to literally feel my feelings. And like, it's okay to just cry. And at the most worst times in the world, that's when it happens. And to be honest, and actually speak to those things and to like name them and to talk to someone. So if it may help for you to find, a counselor, a therapist, definitely a mentor. I would always encourage for people to find like someone that's maybe a mentor that they can call and even just dump and ask questions, but maybe also people that sort of share your same walk, finding your tribe, so to speak. And it takes time to build and nurture those relationships, but in the end, that's a safe place for you. And maybe you come back and you say, wow, this was my initial reaction, but now that I've processed it, I see what has happened and I see how I feel about it. And so as a person who really genuinely is positive most all the time, I found myself in some really tough corners this whole school year, with some personal things, with things at work. And that's been my number one encouragement, is that it's okay to struggle. It's okay to be upset. And it's okay to know that this is hard, or that starting up this next year, what you're anticipating. And it is the most important thing in my sort of toxic trait, is to be a little too positive, is to really be real and to say, hey, and you find who those safe people are, but to really literally say like, okay, this is what's tough. The other thing I want to say, which is kind of really meaningful to me, but I lost my last living grandparent this summer, my granddad, 94, and everything I hear about how he lived his life as a young man, and I didn't really know him in his younger years, right? But I knew him in his older years, and I love the influence that he had on the people around him. And one of the last things he shared with me was, you got to figure out what you can control and what you can't. And I know we've all heard that, but like, maybe it's coming from him, but like, I have been able to draw that circle, and what can I control and versus what's outside of my control. And so if these things are outside of my control, but they're important, what can be my game plan or my approach to that? So you have permission to struggle, and also we can do hard things. We obviously have, and this is not the end. We're going to have more hard things that we face, and they're going to just look different. And whether they're personal or professional, we can do it. And the important thing is to not do it alone.
Absolutely. Jen, we love you, and we're so sorry for your loss. But we have gained so much from your grandfather just through you. Draw that circle, control what you can control. Don't worry about what's on the outside. Thank you for sharing. We love you, Jen. Eric, my friend, let us know, what's your encouragement for music educators all around the world?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm going to let you in on the Marine Corps secret. It's not unknown, and it's going to be very simple, but I'm going to tell you our secret right now. And it's about like, the physical activity and working together in groups and team building. Now, you're going to have some folks that are going to come into the school year in the fall, and they'll be either down, just mentioning the people that passed away this summer. Who knows who people have lost in their team. So if you can get people to work together as a team, especially through physical fitness, you're not going to make everybody happy. But those that you can't be down when you're busy, like, hey, I'm going to work with my team and we're going to make sure we're going to win this contest, whether it's, a field day thing. And Savannah even mentioned like wearing multiple hats. So maybe you're kind of like the gym teacher, or maybe you collaborate with the gym teacher or athletic director. I know me growing up, it was either you're in band or you're an athlete. And, my parents were like, no, you're not going to be in the football team. You're playing saxophone, so maybe working together to build those things together. And once you have those team building events, you kind of distract from, the negative things. And you're like, hey, we're just having a really great time together. Boot camp, we go through recruit training, not telling you to, be drill instructors, but we go through that experience with each other. And it's like, we come out on the other side with, bonds that are going to last lifetimes. So if you can build those bonds through team building, whether it's physical activity or whatever, you'll make a big improvement in just the students' lives.
That's so good, my friend. I appreciate everybody for sharing and giving so much. My friend, Dr. Scott Edgar, come on in here, buddy. Let us know. What are you feeling? What's your encouragement?
It really is all about trust and belonging, isn't it? And Eric, you hit it out of the park there. The wisdom is so simple. But when we're in a field that we put ourselves out there, that we have to be front and center, that if you don't feel that sense of belonging, if you don't feel that sense of trust, and trust is something that we've been told not to give each other for the last 18 months. I don't trust you. I can't trust you. We need to relearn how to trust. And how are we going to do that? We're going to do that through music. We're going to come together and we're going to sit down in the trumpet section and the clarinet section. Eric's going to sit in the saxophone section, and we're going to play music. And we're going to put it out there, and it's going to be full of our strengths. It's going to be full of our needs. And we're going to come together and we're going to learn that through belonging, to have that space where it's safe to be vulnerable, that's how we're going to move forward strongly. I think the number one job that we all have this fall is to remind ourselves that we love music. Oftentimes, we forget that. We're so focused on the what and the how, and how am I going to do this, and how am I going to be moving forward this fall, or doing the Zoom, or doing the hybrid. Man, that stinks, right? Some people are in front, some people are behind. No. We need to remind ourselves that we love music. We need to remind our students that we love music and that they love music. Before we sign off, I want to address one really critical question that Kathy put into the chat. And this is this idea of, what are we going to do if we have another hard thing? And the answer is, more hard things are coming. Jen, you said it perfectly. More hard things are coming. We can't ignore that the hard things are going to be knocking at our door. But the answer is, this comes down to my definition of trauma. And trauma for me is a strong emotion that gets stuck. The question isn't, how are we not going to feel strong emotions? The question is, how do we unstick those emotions once they hit us? And that is what we need to do to move forward from this pandemic and for all the challenges that we're experiencing as a world this fall. So many people talked about filling their buckets. And I would encourage a slight reframe on that because it is so important. But I'd argue that it's not about the water, that it's about the bucket. That we are the bucket, and so many things are punching us in the face and damaging our bucket and puncturing our bucket so that we have holes, that the second that we pour water in, it just comes out. That the walk doesn't stick, that the call map doesn't stick. The question we need to ask ourselves is, what is damaging our bucket? And as Jen said, what is in our control and what is out of our control? It is so much more about the vessel, the students, us, than it is about the water. When we get that at the center of the equation, we can't lose, my friends. I want to extend my deep thanks to my dear friend, Cameron Jenkins, and this entire unbelievable panel. Thank you so much for joining. For the rest of this week at noon, we're having more lunchtime chat, so please join us tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday. We can't wait to have talks and understand how manifesting in so many different corners of our great country. Friends, on behalf of Music for All, I'm Scott Edgar. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Goodbye, everybody.